Hi boys and girls, it's Mrs. Morehart, and what we're going to be doing today is looking at how we can change fractions into decimals and percents, and also looking at how to add and subtract decimals. I would like you to have a pencil and a piece of paper beside you so that you can work through some of this with me. So you can pause the video and go and get yourself ready. Okay, so let's get started. You can see that I've got the power of 10 cards here, and most of you would be familiar with these from when you were younger, kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2, and so on. And so I'm going to start here, and you can see our 10 frame, and when our whole frame is colored in, that is 10 out of 10. And of course, anytime we have one whole thing, it's 1, right? Like that. Now, if I was going to look at this frame, you can see I've got 1 colored in, so that's 1 out of 10. And you can see here I have how many colored in, so write down what you think. And that's 4 out of 10. And if I skip down here, you can see that I have 6 out of 10. So looking at what we have up on the board, if you have 110, this is sitting in the tenths place value. And we talked a little bit about tenths place value before. That is sitting to the right of the decimal. So this is going to be equal to 0 decimal, write down what you think, and 1. You can start seeing a pattern happening. 4 over 10 is going to be equal to 0 decimal 4, and if I skip right down here, we have 1, that's just going to be equal to 1, and you can see that's where the decimal would live if we were going to write it in that way, but we don't bother doing the decimal and 0, it's unnecessary, right? Looking down here, we have 6 out of 10, so that as a decimal would be 0 decimal 6, okay? So that's how you're going to change a fraction simply into a decimal. What if we wanted to change these to percent? Now that takes us back into remembering that percent is out of what? 100, right? And so this is where you need to remember that 10 times 10 is 100. And most of us have that down pat. So when you're going to change this to a percent, whatever you do to the bottom of the fraction, you're going to do to the top. So working over here, 1 over 10, if I'm going to change that so it's a fraction out of 100, because remember that's what percent is, we're going to multiply this by 10, and whatever we do to the bottom, we're going to do to the top, and 1 times 10 is going to give us 10 out of 100, and now we've arrived at our percent. We get to make that real fun percent sign, which is a 0 diagonal line and the other little 0 like that. Let's take 4 tenths, which was 0 decimal 4, and we're going to do the same thing with that. We're going to change that so that it's out of 100. We're going to be multiplying our top number by 10. That's going to give us 40. Bottom number, our denominator, times 10 is going to give us 100. Now that we've got a fraction out of 100, which is percent, we're going to go like this, and this is now 40%. Try this one. Okay, so you've got your 6 over 10. You multiply your numerator times 10. It's going to give you 60. You multiply your denominator times 10. That's going to give you 100. And 60 over 100 equals 60%. Okay? So that's kind of an easy way of doing it. And we're not going to be talking about if your denominator is different from 10 today. Okay? So we've got how do you change your fraction out of 10 to a decimal. And you're thinking about that tenths place value. And how do you take your fraction and change it into a percent? So you can play around with this. You can make yourself some questions out of 10. You can draw your 10 frame like I did here. so that you are understanding. And for your brains at this stage of development, seeing a visual cue like this is really important. All right, so let's take a look at how we could now add and subtract our fractions. So I'm going to erase this now. And we're going to start with this frame, and we're going to add something to it. So I've got 1 out of 10, and let's just see what I can add to it. I've got this card, and you can see that's 3 out of 10. And remembering that we only add our numerators. So 1 plus 3 is 4. That is how much we have out of 10. We're not adding the other bits and pieces. So this would go onto the frame like this, and of course we've got that 1 there. So it is 4 out of 10. Okay, let's do another one. Let's take a look here. What if I have 2 out of 10, and I add on to it 8 out of 10? You can see that you've got 10 out of 10, which means that you have 1 whole. So as long as the numerator and the denominator are the same, you have 1 whole. Okay? Let's try another question that's a little bit different. And this is sort of stretching your ideas a little bit in your brain. So what if I already have 10 out of 10, and I add to that 7 out of 10. Now I have 17 out of 10, or simply I have 1 7/10, just like that. Okay? So I'd like you to play around with creating yourself a 10 grid like this, adding and subtracting fractions. So we've done our addition. Let's just try a little bit of subtraction now. Okay? So let's take our 4 out of 10 here, and let's maybe take away from that this many. And I'm hoping you're writing this down as I'm going, and if you want, what you can do is watch this and then go back and give it a try. So this is now 3 out of 10. And if I were to hold the cards up here, you can see what would be left over would be the 1 out of 10, just like that. All right, so on your own, create some questions. Try adding and subtracting fractions where the denominator is 10, and also see if you can practice going from a fraction that is out of 10 to a decimal and also to a percent. Okay, good luck. Talk to me about it in your individual sessions. Okay, bye for now, boys and girls.